Tonight, I want to take you somewhere unusual. Somewhere hidden just beyond the edge of dreams. Imagine you live next to a quiet construction site. During the day, it's just noise and dust. But at night, when the world is still, a faint melody drifts through the air, the gentle, distant call of a carnival. A place that only appears when the clock strikes midnight, where shadows dance beneath the flickering lights and the music beckons, soft and hypnotic. Tonight, you'll follow that music. Step carefully into a world that seems both familiar and strange, a place where the ordinary bends, and the night reveals a carnival that shouldn't exist. But don't worry, you're safe here with me. We'll walk the midway together, listen to the whispers between the laughter, and explore the magic hidden beneath the painted smiles. So close your eyes gently, take a slow, deep breath, and let the music carry you to the carnival beyond the night. Chapter 1. The Music After Midnight. There's an empty lot next to my house where a new apartment block is supposed to go up. It's mostly rubble and scaffolding, a jagged silhouette of a project that's been stalled for months. Every morning, the workers come at first light. They yell, pound hammers into the rebar, kick up clouds of dust that swirl into my window like lazy spectres. Every evening, they leave just as abruptly, the entire site reduced to a hushed skeleton bathed in streetlight. That lot is dead by sunset. Except it isn't. The first night it happened, I was lying in bed, reading under my cracked lamp. It was close to midnight. My parents were asleep. I could hear Dad snoring through the hallway. That's when I heard the melody, faint, almost shy. A kind of carnival jingle, scratchy and distant, like an old record turning too slowly. I thought it was my imagination. No one in this neighborhood is awake at midnight except stray cats. No one plays Calliope music when everyone's sleeping. And then I heard the laughter, soft at first, then richer, louder, a chorus of them, childlike, almost hysterical. I pulled back my curtain just an inch. Outside, that derelict lot was glowing with light. At first, I thought it was construction work under floodlights, but I was wrong, so very wrong. There were tents, red and yellow, their edges flapping against a wind that wasn't there. Tiny flags ran across high ropes, and people, or something like people, roamed between stalls draped with rusting balloons. Clowns, dozens of them. Their painted faces were too white, lips too broad, grins too sharp as they moved with a jittering grace like damaged marionettes. Some of them balanced on impossible stilts. Others ran in loops, chasing each other like mad dogs. And there was this boy among them. He couldn't have been much older than me, my height, my build. Except his clothes were like mine too. The same hoodie I was wearing that night, the same scuffed sneakers. He paused and stared up at my window, his face a blank circle against the torchlit carnival. And then he smiled, a horrible, knowing smile. That was when I yanked my curtain shut and pressed my back to the wall, heart pounding in my ears. By morning, I told myself it had been a dream. But the next night the music came again, and this time I was determined to see more. Chapter 2. Into the Red Dust. That second night, I dressed in jeans and sneakers like someone going to the shop, but my hands were slick with sweat, my chest buzzing with a sick mix of fear and curiosity. When the melody started again, a drunken carousel waltz that oozed into my room like syrup, I was already at the window. I cracked my bedroom door to make sure my parents were asleep, then crept downstairs and out into the street. The lot was glowing, pink and orange like a dying star, and this was my neighborhood, so I should have been safe. Except tonight, it felt unfamiliar. Every step toward the lot scraped against my nerves like glass. As I crossed into the dust and rubble, the world shifted. Gone was the construction debris. The skeletons of cranes and steel had melted into candy-striped tents and booths adorned with peeling wood signs reading things like "Fun House" and "Paint Your Nightmares Here." And the clowns, they circled me. One bent toward me, his mouth a dark cave that never moved. Yet I could hear his voice. "Glad you could come." They had my face, every one of them. Suddenly, hands grabbed my shoulders, pale hands, white gloves. My double, the boy who had stared up at my window, was right there, his breath damp against my cheek. "You were supposed to wait," he whispered. "We weren't ready for you." That was when I realized I couldn't move my legs. My feet were trapped, sinking into the soil as if it had turned to quicksand. Around me, the carnival spun faster and faster. Every light burned my eyes, every face glowed too white, every grin grew too wide, and then I felt my face starting to stretch into that same grotesque grin, my lips pulled like wires. "You'll fit right in," my double cooed as my world dissolved into dizzying colour and hollow laughter, and under my feet I felt something stirring, as if I weren't sinking into dirt at all, but into an open mouth, into the hunger that powered this impossible place. And I knew then that the carnival had been waiting for me all along. Chapter 3. The Hall of Flesh and Mirrors. I woke with my cheek pressed against something damp and gritty. My hands were caked with mud that smelled of rust and rain. The air was clotted with a stench, burnt sugar, rot, old meat. When I finally dared to open my eyes, I realized I wasn't in my neighborhood anymore. I was lying in the middle of a midway, under a crisscross of dangling bulbs that threw jagged shadows across cracked cobblestone. The tents around me breathed with movement, fabric rustled without wind, lanterns swayed with a sick rhythm. And my face. I reached up. My fingers brushed my lips, stiff, painted, a clown's grin. I tried to rub it away, but the makeup was sticky, almost wet. It clung like it had soaked into my skin. Every touch left my fingertips white and red. That's when I heard a voice overhead, my own voice, raspy and distant. "You're going to enjoy this one," it said. "Everyone loves a good reflection." A sudden yank at my arm pulled me up. Another clown, my twin with hollow eyes. He led me like a prize along a roped path toward a wooden archway. Above it hung a peeling sign that read "Hall of Flesh and Mirrors" in letters that wept what looked like blood. Inside was a dark corridor, glass panels rising floor to ceiling, except they weren't glass, skin. Smooth as polished marble in some places, puckered and stitched in others, and each one reflected me back. Except my face was moving faster than I was, or pulling expressions I wasn't making. Some versions laughed wildly, others screamed. Some seemed to rot before my eyes, their painted grins melting like wax. I stumbled deeper. Every step warped me. And then I realized that the walls weren't just mirrors, they were cages. Figures wriggled behind the translucent surface, trapped. Some were vaguely human, some were shaped like me. They moaned through the stretched walls as my twin guided me past. "You look better here," my double murmured as we moved through the narrow passage. No more waiting. And then I saw him, my father, his face flattened into one of the fleshy panes, eyes dull and lips stitched, and my mother, and my neighbors, and me, everywhere. That was when my twin leaned close and whispered, breath sweet and rotting, "You thought you were special, you thought you could leave." But there was no exit, only a final mirror at the end, blank and waiting. And as I pressed my hands to its surface, it rippled like water and pulled me in. Chapter 4. The Carousel of Hollow Eyes. When I came to, I was spinning. Wooden animals blurred past my eyes, garishly painted horses with eyes like cracked glass, their legs frozen in leaping poses. Music clawed at my ears, the same Calliope waltz, louder and warped, and I was on one of them. I felt it rocking under me, felt my hands clenching a pole that was slick with something sticky and cold. The carousel moved faster and faster, turning into a dizzying circle of light and shadow. And then I noticed the other riders. They weren't people, not anymore. Masks, wax faces, clown grins forever fixed. And their eyes, empty holes. Each one stared at me as we spun past, and each one was me, my face, my body, my scream caught soundless behind painted lips. The carousel never stopped, and my hands were glued to the pole as if my flesh had fused into it. I felt my legs numbing into wood, my ribs stiffening into carved shapes. I was becoming part of it. "You can't leave," sang the twin beside me, his face stretched and grotesquely joyful. "We never leave." I tried to scream, but my mouth wouldn't move. I tried to close my eyes, but my lids felt painted on. And just when I thought I would disappear forever into the spinning nightmare, the world went dark. But not before I heard my own voice, far away, calling my name, like someone looking for me. And I realized with cold terror that whoever was calling was not my parents. And whoever had my face in that nightmare carnival was very much still out there, waiting to take my place. Chapter 5. The Fortune Teller's Masquerade. When I woke again, I was no longer spinning. I was seated. My hands were tied to the wooden arms of a chair with something coarse and damp, rope that smelled faintly of iron and decay. My mouth was dry, my lips cracked and smeared with that sticky white paint that refused to come off. Around me I heard the faint murmur of a crowd, though the tent was empty. Before me, at a small circular table draped in fraying velvet, sat a figure, a fortune-teller, robed in rags that shimmered like insect wings under the light of a swinging lantern. Their face was obscured by a thick scarf and a tarnished silver mask shaped like a grinning mouth. "You finally came," the voice rasped, a voice I felt in my bones. A deck of tarot cards appeared as their hands moved. Every finger was wrapped in layers of gauze, stiff as dead wood. "Pick," they whispered. I tried to pull my hands free. They wouldn't budge. The fortune-teller began to deal anyway. One by one, face-down cards fanned out like teeth across the table. When my trembling fingers managed to touch one, it stuck to me. I turned it over. My face stared back at me, but it was rotting. Paint peeling off my cheeks like old wallpaper. Eyes hollowed into empty sockets. And my mouth sewn into a grotesque grin. "You see," the fortune-teller breathed, "your future." The tent walls began to breathe as if alive. "Every soul who enters becomes a part of the carnival," they murmured, "and every face is collected." That's when I realized the tent wasn't canvas at all. Its walls were stitched together with countless masks, each one my face frozen into different expressions of terror and sorrow. And as my hands began to stiffen, as my lips began to taste of dust and thread, I heard a final chuckle. "You thought you could leave," whispered my own voice from behind the mask, "but you already gave us your face." And then the lantern flickered, and the world went black. Chapter 6. The House of Vanishing Lights. When my eyes opened again, I was standing. But this time I wasn't alone. I was inside what looked like a house, or at least something mimicking one. Its walls were peeling plaster and chipped wood, like some long-abandoned Victorian home. Except that it was impossible. There were no houses like this on the empty lot. And yet here it was, 2 stories of rooms with too many doors and too few windows, halls that branched into themselves, stairs that rose up only to vanish into darkness. And they were all full of people. No, not people. Painted figures, my face on every one of them. Some sat at empty dinner tables, hands folded politely, eyes vacant and lips too red. Others roamed the halls with blank expressions, their heads turning in eerie unison as I passed. Everywhere I looked, me, my face, my body, my clothes. Some were grinning, some wept silently, and one reached for me with hands like porcelain, whispering, "You can't go home. You live here now." I ran. The halls twisted into each other. The rooms doubled and tripled. Every door I pushed swung me deeper into that impossible maze of my own face. And then I heard the music again, that sickly carnival tune, bleeding up through the floorboards. Desperate, I grabbed a door handle and wrenched it open, and I froze, because I was looking into my own bedroom, my parents asleep, my cracked lamp glowing. The window still slightly open to the summer air, and standing at the foot of my bed was me. The me who had stared up at my window that first night. He smiled, and his lips pulled back too far, splitting into a grin so broad it showed his gums. "You should have stayed outside," he whispered, and as he stepped toward my sleeping body, I felt myself pulled backward, into the house, into the maze, into my painted face forever. And this time I knew there would be no way out. Chapter 7. The Grin Beneath the Floor. When I awoke this time, I felt the floor moving under my hands. At first, I thought I was trembling. But no, the wooden planks were flexing like ribs, breathing. The house was alive, and I was trapped inside it. Everywhere I turned, my own painted face stared back at me from peeling wallpaper, cracked picture frames, splintered doorways. Some of the faces smiled, others screamed soundlessly, and all of them followed me with dead glass eyes. I forced myself down the hall, dragging my fingers along the wall for balance. The floor groaned and shifted under my feet, and I heard something underneath, a scrape, a slithering damp sound. When I paused, so did it. I held my breath, and then the floor split. A jagged mouth opened beneath my boots. Yellowed teeth made of boards and nails, and a tongue, slick and dark, uncoiled like a snake, reaching toward my legs. I leapt backward with a scream trapped in my throat, but as I hit the wall, I felt my hands pressing out of the plaster behind me. "You can't leave," my voice whispered in my ear. "You're part of it now. Forever." That's when the house began to laugh. A deep, wooden laughter that vibrated in my bones and made my teeth ache. And then I was falling, swallowed by the floor as the grinning mouth of the house closed over me. Chapter 8, The Hall of Forgotten Guests. I fell forever. Or maybe it was only seconds. When I hit the ground, my knees buckled, and I was on my hands in what felt like cold, packed dirt. But it wasn't dirt. It was a corridor, long and narrow and faintly lit by a dying bulb overhead, and every few feet there were niches carved into the walls, and inside them, people. No, not people anymore. Painted mannequins. But their eyes were real. And they followed me as I moved down that hallway. Each one had my face too, some slack and blank, some twisted into anguished grins, and all of them whispered as I passed, "You can't go back. You never left. You are us." The hall seemed to stretch forever, a tunnel dug into my own fear and flesh. And then I saw him at the end. Me, the version of myself that had lured me into the carnival. He was leaning against a door, his hands stuffed casually into his pockets, his face painted in that same grotesque smile. "You finally found me," he said, his voice dripping with amusement. "Or did I find you?" He reached for the door, and when it opened, it wasn't a room that lay beyond. It was the carnival again, spinning and glowing and alive with my painted faces, my stitched mouths. The Calliope wailed, and my double grinned like a skull. "You can hide in the halls as long as you want," he said, gesturing toward the riot of light and laughter outside, "but sooner or later we all go home." And then, with one terrible shove, he pushed me back into the nightmare I thought I'd escaped. Chapter 9, The Final Attraction. When the world stopped spinning, I was lying face down on a wooden platform, my hands trembling against its surface. Every inch of me felt scraped raw, my breath shallow and sharp as shattered glass. Around me, the carnival was alive, too alive. Night had swallowed the sky entirely. The few bulbs that swung overhead painted the midway in sickly orange, making the shapes lurking between booths flicker and twist like restless ghosts. Music, that infernal Calliope, wound itself into my skull and refused to let go. And yet I wasn't alone. As I struggled to rise, I caught sight of him. My double, leaning casually against a post a few feet away, his painted grin so wide I could see his molars glinting. "You made it," he crooned. I tried to speak, but my throat was dry as sawdust. "Oh, don't look so scared," my twin continued. "This is what you wanted, isn't it? You heard the music. You followed. No one dragged you." He gestured grandly to the midway around us, and I saw it clearly for the first time. Every attraction was a warped reflection of my life. There was a shooting game where the targets weren't tin ducks but tiny figures with my face on them, eyes painted too big, mouths frozen mid-scream. There was a cotton candy stand serving tufts of some grey, hair-like substance that twitched when picked up, and at the centre of it all stood a giant Ferris wheel, except each chair was shaped like a skull with its mouth wired open, swinging gently as if whispering. My double grinned. "You recognize them all, don't you?" he asked. And I did, horribly. Each stall mimicked a part of my life. The swing set I used to play on as a kid, the tiny stage where my school put on plays, the corner shop where I spent my pocket money. But all of them had been hollowed out and rebuilt into these grotesque attractions. "You can leave any time," my twin offered. "Just take a ride." And as if summoned, a clown shuffled into view. His face was a mask. My face, except stretched too tight over a leering skull. He held up a single, tarnished ticket. I didn't want to take it. Every nerve in me screamed to run. But where could I go? This was my neighborhood. This was my nightmare. And every path led deeper. I swallowed, took the ticket, and felt a ripple of cold slide up my arm. "Enjoy," my twin whispered, and vanished into the shadows. The clown led me toward one of the attractions, a tunnel marked House of Echoes, its jagged wooden face painted with my eyes in endless repetition. Inside, the walls weren't walls at all. They were memories. Each corridor bled into a scene from my past. There was my mother calling me home from the front porch, my father locking up the garage, every detail rendered perfectly. But as I walked deeper, they began to twist. My mother's voice warped into a shriek. My father's hands melted into the doorknob. And then they were looking at me, everyone with my painted face. "You thought you could leave," they said together. "You thought you were real." And every time I tried to back away, the walls folded inward like a jaw closing. When I finally stumbled out, my hands trembling and my eyes wet, I found myself face to face with the Ferris wheel. Its chairs were moving, slow and deliberate, and my twin was waiting for me in one of them. "You're tired," he said as the chair swung toward me. "You might as well rest." And I felt my legs moving of their own accord. No matter how much my mind screamed, my body climbed up into that chair, metal bar across my chest, my twin leaning close enough that his painted grin filled my world. "Here," he whispered, "time stops." And the wheel began to turn. With every rotation, my thoughts unraveled. I saw my house, my parents asleep, my bed empty. I saw myself, the version I had left behind, climbing into my bed as if nothing had happened, and I felt my hands losing strength, my face stiffening into a painted mask. "You see," my twin murmured as the wheel creaked higher, "you never left, and you never will." And just as we reached the top, he vanished. Chapter 10. The Eternal Masquerade. The Ferris wheel creaked as it slowed, each groan slicing through the heavy night air like a warning. I blinked against the harsh carnival lights, trying to steady myself. My limbs felt heavy, more like stone than flesh. The painted grin I dreaded was settling, stretching, moulding itself across my face, as if the carnival was sewing me into its fabric one stitch at a time. When the chair stopped, I stepped down. The midway around me seemed to pulse, alive, watching. I was no longer just a visitor. I was part of the show. The carnival whispered to me, 1,000 voices all my own, "Welcome home." I tried to run. I tried to scream. But my mouth would only form the same painted smile. Every booth, every tent, every twisted clown was a reflection of me. Each one trapped in some grotesque tableau of my life, twisted by the carnival's hunger. I found myself before the greatest tent of all, the Big Top. Its entrance was draped with tattered banners, frayed and stained, emblazoned with letters that flickered and changed. "The Eternal Masquerade," "No Exit," "Join the Dance." A voice echoed from inside, calling me by name. I stepped in. The interior was vast and impossible, a cathedral of shadows, lit by flickering lanterns that cast long, wretched silhouettes. In the center, a circle of figures danced slowly, endlessly, their faces hidden behind half-masks carved from bone and porcelain. And among them, I recognized my twin. He gestured for me to join. "No," I whispered, but the carnival answered with cold laughter. My feet moved forward. The music rose, a dreadful lullaby that wormed into my brain, rewriting thought and memory. I felt hands, cold, clammy, grasping at me, pulling me deeper into the dance. One by one, the dancers removed their masks. Underneath were faces I recognized. My faces, frozen in various states of terror, sorrow, and madness. One mask slipped away to reveal my own face, or what was left of it, cracked and peeling, eyes hollow and empty. The carnival was not just a place. It was a prison, a gallery, a masquerade of souls. I tried to scream again, but the painted grin stretched wider, locking my mouth. And the last thing I saw before the darkness swallowed me whole was my twin, stepping forward with a mask in his hands. "Now you belong to us," he said softly, "forever." He pressed the mask to my face. It was cold, like frozen bone, and as it fused to my skin, I felt my soul unraveling, weaving into the carnival's endless night. I was the mask. I was the painted smile. I was the silent scream behind every tent, and outside the carnival music played on, a lullaby for the lost. The carnival that shouldn't exist, but does, because I never left. The carnival waits for you.